Hello, I would like to discuss the CV, curriculum vitae, or at least most of you are familiar with a resume. The CV is a more extensive version of a resume. A resume is being used in some professions, such as in if you're a music teacher teaching public schools, you would not submit a CV, you would submit a resume. Uh, so a resume is usually just 2 pages long, sometimes three, but very often they try to limit it to 2 pages. And on a resume, you just list the most important things that are related to the job that you're applying for, um, or whatever you're using the resume for. And so if um, if in your profession you only need a resume, then well, perhaps you can um, review your resume. And what I would like to recommend in that regard is to Google resume and then your profession, let's say elementary music teacher resume, and then look at some that you find, and maybe you get some nice ideas. And maybe you also get some ideas from my talk about CVs, even if you don't have to make a CV. So CV again is curriculum vitae. That's a Latin word, essentially meaning the biography of my life. So if it's my CV, right? And in fact, I want to briefly look at my CV just as an example. But again, you can also Google CVs and look at other CVs. So let's say if you're a composer, Google CV composer, and maybe you can find a composer CV, because I'm not a composer, although I have composed, but I'm not really a composer. So I'm a music scholar, and for that my CV might be a good example. But if you're a performer, you may want to look at performance CVs. But I will give general information for all of them. I just want to show you the vastness of what you can list, and how long it can be. So mine is 61 pages long. Of course, I'm already a little bit older, but anyways, you would list your education usually first. Now, at some point when I was younger, I started also listing my high school diploma, because I don't have a bachelor's degree. Back then in Germany, there was no bachelor's degree, so I only earned a master's degree. So for Americans who would question, well, which year, how old might he be? Or you can normally see that on the year of the bachelor's degree. So minus 22 years, that's the year when you were born, something like that, if you want to find out somebody's age. And I wanted to include it because I wanted them to find out my age, and maybe now I should remove it because I'm so old. But when I was younger, I didn't want people to think I was so old, because my CV is so long and I have had quite a bit of experiences. Anyways, I listed some administrative experience, university positions I've held, other relevant experiences. Let's say I taught privately piano and or voice. Now this is actually the format of the Texas State CV, so we are required to have a section on teaching, so with awards, teaching awards, courses taught. Now, most people actually don't list them by semester, but I do wanted people, at least when I started it, wanted people to see how much I had to teach, because at many other universities the teaching load is much lower. Here at Texas State, it's relatively fast. So I list them by semester, and that, of course, is already several pages long now over the years. Anyways, I list the oral exams and theses committees that I have been on. Um, and that might not be relevant to you, but research I supervised, or theses in this case, I supervised, courses I prepared, external funding I received related to teaching, also grant proposals that I didn't receive related to teaching, internal grants, and there's a separate video on grants that you may look up where I explain on how to look for grants and apply for grants and discuss this grant proposals. Those are quite important. Now, in my case, I teach, so I want to list student achievements. So if you're a private violin or piano teacher, you may also want to list your students' achievements if there are some notable achievements. Or so I have many students who went to conferences and presented on conferences, or many students who published papers, so they are listed here. Just to give you some ideas what you can do. Then scholarly creative, of course, performers, that would be heavily in terms of performances. So for me, those are primarily publications, so books, some textbooks and course packs, edited books, chapters in books, and I divide them by year. There are usually several per year, and it's kind of boring. But then articles, and so referee journals, and maybe non-referee journals, except I don't have those, reports, book reviews or CD reviews that are published. They don't count quite as much as scholarly articles, but they are important to list in your CV. Translations, if you did some translations, works not in print, and those are primarily conference presentations. And so I have many of those. Let me scroll down here. What did I skip here? These are public lectures and workshops, or invited talk, lectures, presentations. So if you were invited by another school or so to give a talk, you should list it there. Composition, so I only have a few, at least only a few that are notable. So I listed only 3 here. Musical performances, I very briefly say that occasionally I sing or play piano in public, but that's not my main thing, so I don't actually have a detailed list of it. Multimedia productions, consultancies, and adjudication. So many of you may be an adjudicator, maybe for UIL. You should definitely list that. Workshops that I led, others, grants. Grants are very important. These are grants related to scholarly creative activities, internal grants, so external grants, internal grants, submitted but not funded grants, fellowships, awards, and honors. Those are important things. Service. So you can have institutional service for your, let's say, for your school district, or you can have professional service if you're active in professional organizations, or you can have community service. So I've been a watchdog for my kids' schools and directed a chess club and things like that. So those are things I list under community service, and I also have a lot of professional service. Anyways, so I made a list here of things on what can be included. Of course, education, then jobs you have held, even jobs not related to your area of expertise. Let's say you're very young and starting out in your professional career, or still going to school, and you're using your CV for applying for scholarships. One of the important things is that, of course, we look at GPA, or how good is somebody, but we also look at things like jobs. So if somebody had to work half-time or full-time while pursuing school, we weigh that quite heavily. And so maybe somebody with a lower GPA, but who had to work really hard to get where she or he got, we may that way more heavily and award scholarships based on that. Volunteer work, very important, at least in the United States here, very important, very important for receiving scholarships, even admission to schools. So list any kind of volunteer work. And now, if you just volunteered a few hours, just list, make a general list of what you volunteered. But if you have many hours, make sure to list the number of hours. Any kind of high achievements, Dean's List, GPA, things like that. Competitions you participated. You know, if you did URL competitions when you were in high school and you got a one ranking or so, you should definitely list that. Or a performance competition. Master classes. Now, if you participated in a master class, then list who gave the master class. If you actually gave a master class, and that must be clear in your CV, then say that you gave a master class and to what kind of students. Workshops that you may have attended or even led, conferences you attended. So when you start out and don't have a whole lot yet for your CV, then you can just list conferences you attended, even if you didn't present something. Later on, you may want to delete that. If you have conferences you presented at, definitely list every single presentation with the title of the conference and the date and location. Publications. Performances, make sure to say what part you performed. So if sometimes it's clear, other times it's not clear. If you play several instruments, if it is clear that you play several instruments from other parts of your CV, but then in your performance list you don't say what instrument you performed at a particular performance, then that would be not good. So you need to say exactly what was your contribution, if you directed the orchestra, if you conducted the orchestra, whatever. So have a list every single performance, even if that's a very long list. The longer the better. As a performer, you have a repertoire list, very important. The longer the better. Every single piece that you played, so maybe not some easy etudes or so, but some considerable works that you can list, composer name and title of the work that you have played in the past. Even if it's not active repertoire, let's say you played it 10 years ago, but you did play it and you need to list it in your repertoire list. List of compositions. If you compose, even if you just have a few, I have 3 that I would like to give out that I'm proud of, so I only list 3 of a few others that I'm not so proud of, and I don't want people to ask for it, so I don't list them. Right? Performances of your composition, it can be a separate category. So when and where all the performances of your compositions took place. Okay, special skills like software, programming languages, web design, even languages, spoken languages, what your skills are. So I'm German, I'm fluent in German. I mean, that's my native language, so really the best languages for me are German and English, but I have a few others where I have reading knowledge or some basic conversational knowledge. But any of those are possible, so think about what you can include. Did I list scholarships here? Oh yeah, well, no, under achievements here. Scholarships, I just include this here. Very important that you list all your scholarships you ever received. Now, if it was just a $100 scholarship, you may possibly not want to say how much money you got for it, just list the name of the scholarship. But if you got a $10,000 or even a $1,000 scholarship, that's quite notable. And you may want to list even the amount in your CV. But to what degree you list it is really up to you, but you need to list every single scholarship that you received. So those are good. All of these things are good for job applications, for applications for professional service, uh, for school admission, for scholarships, and so on. So, anyways, I hope this helped you getting some ideas on how you can expand your CV and make yourself more marketable with the things that you already accomplished. So, email me if you have any questions. Bye.